Hi guys and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to teach you how you can build user interface applications in an easy way and also completely free. And the reason why I'm saying this is because there are some tools that you can use in order to help you to build UI applications, but unfortunately they are very expensive. So in this video I will teach you how you can use Visual Studio Community version, which is completely free, in order to do that same thing. So immediately let's start and let me show you the application that we are going to build. So here we have our to-do app. As you can see, this is how our application is going to look like. And here I can type a task that I need to do. Let's say, for example, pay bills. Okay, and I can add that task to my to-do list. Let's add another one. Let's say go to the gym. Add that as well. And let's say also learn coding. Okay, and then when I finish each one of these tasks, I can easily remove them from my list by simply clicking on them. Okay, and all of the tasks have been removed. So this is the application that we are going to build in this very short video. And before we start writing the code, I want to invite you to please watch this video and build this application together with me. And you will see how much knowledge you can get in a very short video that took me maybe 2 hours to prepare, film, and edit. And then I want you to imagine how much knowledge you can get in an entire practical programming course that I have been working on for the past year and a half. So my practical programming course is going to teach you everything on one place, step by step, and it is going to take you from beginner to experienced developer level so that you don't need any more courses after that one, and so that you can get a job and finally start bringing money home. Initial 100 lessons are already available, and you can click the link in the description and start learning right now. Also, every week I am adding new video lessons and new exercises for you to practice until we cover everything that you need to know in order to become an experienced developer and get a job that you like. Also, you will get access to an exclusive developer community where you can ask questions, share experiences, and collaborate with other programmers. One very important thing about this course is that all of the skills that you learn in the course will be applicable and transferable to any OOP programming language. So languages like C++, C#, Java, Python, JavaScript doesn't really matter, because in this course you will not just learn to code, you will learn to create, to innovate, and to solve problems, regardless of the programming language that you want to work in the future and type of application that you want to build. In this course we will be writing C#, but it is just going to be a tool for me to shape your programmer's mind, and all of the skills that you gain will be transferable and applicable to any other object-oriented programming language. I will put a link in the description that you can use in order to get the course, and currently there is a special discount, but the number of people that can get it is limited, so if you want to join, definitely don't miss this opportunity. So with that being said, let's start building our application. I already showed you how it looks like and how it should behave. So now we are going to focus on building this application. So the first thing that you will need is Visual Studio 2022, and you can download community version for free. If you have some older version like Visual Studio 2019 or something like that, then I absolutely recommend you to download 2022, because you might experience some problems that I will not have here because I have new version of Visual Studio. So make sure to download 2022. Okay, so once you have that, click on Create New Project here. And the type of application that we are going to build is going to be Windows Forms application. Okay, you can find it here. So Windows Forms app C#. So click on that and click on Next. Okay, and here we are going to give the name to our application, to our project. So I will call it My To-Do App, like this, and click on Next. Okay, and here you should select the framework. And here I have the list of different frameworks, and the one that we are going to choose is .NET 6.0. And also, please keep in mind, you might have some newer versions like 7.0 or something like that, depending on when you are watching this video. But it's very important that you select 6.0. It has long-term support, and if you don't do this step the same that I do, then you might experience some problems that I will not have here. So make sure to select 6.0 and then click on Create. And now our project is being created. Okay, so here immediately we get an empty form, and I can also start this application. So when I started, as you can see, we have this empty form. Our application will not do anything because we have not written any code, we have not implemented any functionalities, but this is a functional application that doesn't do anything. I can simply minimize it, I can open it again, but it does not do anything. So to this empty application, we are now going to add the functionalities. So let's close this app, and on the screen, I'm going to put the screenshot of the application that we want to build. So as you can see, we need one text box, we need one button, and we need one list control. So now the question is where you can find all of those controls. Well, please make sure that you are on this form 1 and then click on View Toolbox. Okay, and you will get a window that looks like this. And here inside this toolbox, you can find all of the controls that we need, and you can simply drag and drop them to your form and use them. Now, one very important thing is that when you are trying to open this toolbox, it's very important for you to be on this Form 1 design part, because if you are on any other part of your application, for example, here, you will not be able to see your toolbox. So again, go to Form 1 and then click on View, and you should be able to see Toolbox, and that's where we have all of the controls that we will be using to build this application. So what controls do we need to build our to-do app? We need one text box, we need one button, and we need one list box control. So let's find them here. I will search for text box. It is this control here, and I will simply drag and drop it onto my form. Okay, I can make it a little bit bigger, and let's also make this entire form a little bit smaller. Okay, so now if I run my application, as you can see, our application has this text box, and I can type text into this text box. Okay, but something that I want to change here is the fact that this font here is very small and you maybe cannot even see it. So that's the first thing that I'm going to change. So how will you do that? Well, close the application and then click on this text box, right click on it and go to Properties. And here you will be able to see all of the properties of this text box. And something that we are looking for is a property called Font. Here it is. So simply click on these 3 little dots. And here you will be able to choose the font that you like, font style, and also the size of the font. So I will just change the size of the font to 16 and click on OK. And as you can see, our text box has become bigger. So now if I start my application and I start typing, as you can see, the font is bigger and now you can probably see it better. Okay, so that is one thing. Another interesting thing is that now if I add a button or a list box, which are also the controls that we need in order to build our application, they will also have that default small font. So I will have to change the font for each individual control that I add to my application. But there is an easier way to do that same thing, and that is to change the font on this entire form. So you can click on your form, right click on it and go to Properties. Okay, and find Font property of your form. Click on these 3 little dots, and here you are going to set 16 as the size of font for your entire form. Okay, and that means that all of the controls that I add on this form will automatically inherit that font unless I set a specific font for that control, which I will not, because now we will have this 16 as a default font for all of the controls that we add to this form. Okay, so let's find button. in my toolbox, I will type button, and here I have button control. Okay, I will increase it a little bit. And as you can see, already the font is bigger and you can clearly see it. Okay, and another control that I need is our list. That control is called list box. Okay, and simply drag and drop it here, like this. Okay, and let's just make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so now if I start this application, as you can see, we have this text box, and then when we click on this button, this text here should be added to our list box. But so far, we have not implemented any functionality. So what we are going to do next is we will implement the functionality for this application so that when I type the text and click on this button, that text should be added to my to-do list. So let's close the application and let's do that part next. So how are we going to do that? Well, in order to be able to implement this functionality, we will need to access these controls here from our code, and we will need to write in code the behavior that we want. And that is, when I click on this button, take the text from this text box and put it into this list here. And that means that we will need to name these controls so that we can reference them from our code. So if I click on this text box control and go to right click on it and go to properties, here you should be able to see name property. Okay, and as you can see, this text box already has default name. It's text box 1. Also, this button has default name, it's button 1, and then this list box has default name and it is list box 1. Now you can leave these names like this, but what I recommend to do is to give meaningful names to these controls, because if your application grows and you add new text boxes, new list boxes, new buttons, then it is going to be extremely hard for you to remember which one is which if they don't have meaningful names. So that is the first thing that we are going to change. I will go to this text box, again, right click on it, go to properties and find name property. Okay, and I will call this text box task tbx. Okay, so task text box. And then I will also rename this button. I will call it add task btn. Okay, so this is the name of the button. But another thing that we can change for this button is the text of this button, because currently the text that is shown on the button is button 1. So please keep in mind that you don't confuse those two. So the name property is the name that you will use in order to reference that control, to reference that button from your C# code. And the text property is the text that will be shown on the button itself. So we can also change that. Let me find text property. Here it is. Okay, so here I will say add task. Okay, and this is just the text that our user will see. Okay, so we have changed the name of our text box, of our button, and let's also change the name of our list box control. So let's find name property. Where is it? Okay, here it is. So I will call this list box tasks lbx. So tasks list box. Okay, so now that we have named all of our controls, what we can do is we can access them from our C# code and implement the functionalities that we would like. So what is the functionality that we would like to implement first? That functionality is the following. When my user clicks on this add task button, I would like to take the text from this text box called task tbx. I want to take that text and put it inside this list here. So how are we going to do that? Well, in order to implement that functionality, you need to understand what are events. And you can understand an event as an interaction between your user and your application. For example, an interaction between your user and your application is button click. That is an event. Or when a user types a letter into this text box or deletes a letter, that is also an event. So in this application, we need to implement an event called button click event. So how can we do that? Well, click on your button, actually right click on it and go to properties. And here, under this little thunder sign, you will see events. And here you can see the list of all of the events that you can implement for this button. And the event that we want to implement is called click. So I will simply double click here. And as you can see, it is going to implement this empty method, which is called event handler, meaning when the user clicks on the button, this method here is going to handle that event, which means it is going to describe the behavior of our application, what should happen when the user clicks on that button. An interesting thing is that there is faster way for you to do the same thing, and that is the following. Go to your form and simply double click on your button, and as you can see, it will create the same event handler, or if you already have it, it will simply take you to the implementation that you already have. We currently have this empty implementation, but if we didn't have it, it would create that default event handler. Now, something very important that I just said is that it will create default event handler. So what is default event and what is default event handler? Well, default event for any control is the event that is most commonly used for that control. For example, for our button, if you go to these events, here you can see a list of a lot of different events. But the default one, the one that is most commonly used, is click. So Visual Studio gives you this simple double clicking as a faster way for you to create that default event. And each control has its own default event. For example, for a button, that is clicking on a button. For a text box, that is you typing the text. For a list box, that is when you select an item of the list box, and so on. So if you want to do the same thing in a faster, easier way, you want to implement a default event for a certain control, you can simply double click on that control without having to go to this list of all of the events. That is just one small tip and shortcut if you want to use it. Now, there is one very important thing that I want you to keep in mind before you start clicking everywhere on your form, or actually anywhere on your form, because you might cause some very confusing bugs, especially for beginners. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Right now, if I start my application, we have this application that is running. We don't have any problems. We don't have any bugs. It does not work the way that we want it to work, but we can start it and it does not have problems. So let me show you how you can create a problem very easily. So let's say that you wanted to create or to access this button click event by double clicking on the button, and here we have it, but accidentally, instead of double clicking on the button, you double click here maybe, so on the form. So you do something like this. Okay, as you can see, Visual Studio has created another event handler called form1 load, which means when this form loads, that is the event that we can handle here. So now you realize, oh, no, I don't need this. I made a mistake. So what you will do is you will simply delete this, okay? And you think that you have solved the problem because what was created, you simply deleted it and you shouldn't have any problems, right? Wrong. Very, very wrong, because now if I start my application, immediately we get this problem and we cannot even start our application. Or even if you go to your form, you will not be able to see your form because we have a problem that is very, very confusing for beginners. So now I'm going to explain why do we get this problem. In order to understand what is happening here, let's take a look at one of these other files that we have not mentioned so far, and that is this one, form1.designer.cs. This is a file that is automatically generated and we have not written any code in it so far. So if I open it, let's see what we have inside it. And please, I don't want you to be scared right now because you don't understand what is inside here. It's not important at this point. As a beginner, you don't need to understand the code here. But something interesting that I want to show you is this part here. You will also have this if you follow the same steps that I did. And that is this part here. When we created our task TBX, so our task text box. We have changed some properties of that text box, and our Visual Studio automatically in the background has written code for us in order to describe those changes. So for example, here is the font that we have set for our text box. Also, here is the location, meaning the position where we have positioned our text box. Here is its name, its size, and other properties. And we have these things for all of the controls that we have added onto our form. Here we have our Add Task button. And another interesting thing that our Add Task button has is this line here. And this line here says, hey, this Add Task button has click event, which was handled inside this method here. So that means when our user clicks on Add Task button, invoke this handler here. So here we can see what is the problem that we are currently experiencing, because for our form as well, this line was added, which says load event of the form is handled, and when the form loads, please invoke this handler here. And currently it is underlined because we have deleted it. But our Visual Studio did not realize that we have deleted it, so it did not remove this line here. So now, in order to solve the bug and the problem that we currently have, we need to remove this line manually. And that is the only thing that you should do inside this form1.designer.cs. And that is, in case that you experience the problem that I just showed, then you can come to this designer file and remove manually that event handler which you have deleted. Everything else that is happening inside this file is going to happen automatically, and if you decide to change anything, you can just break your application, because Visual Studio is tracking everything that you do on your form. Now I'm going to close this and open it again. And now, because we have solved the bug, we can see our form again. So all of the changes that you make on this designer here of your form, Visual Studio is going to track those changes and write them automatically inside this file here. So you should not change this file manually, except for the one thing that I just showed you, which is in order to fix the bug that was caused by deleting an event handler. Okay, so now if I run my application, as you can see, we don't have that bug anymore. So again, I'm going to close this Form 1 Designer. We will not change anything inside it, but I wanted to show you, in case that you are not careful and you are clicking all over your form, you can experience the bug that I demonstrated. And I also wanted to show you the proper way to fix that bug. So now we are going to focus on implementing this Add Task event handler, which is currently empty. So what should happen when the user clicks on the button? The following should happen. We should take the text from this text box and put it into this list box here. And in order to access these two controls from our code, from our C# code, we need to know their names. And that is the exact reason why we named them meaningfully, so that we can easily remember their names. So this text box here is called Task TBX, and this list box is called Tasks LBX. So now let's implement our functionality. The first thing that I will do here is I will create a list of strings where I can store all of my tasks. And I will do that here. So here I will say list of string, and I will call it my tasks. Okay, and initially it is going to be an empty list of strings. Now here I want you to notice that I created this my tasks variable, my tasks list, as a global variable. And there are two reasons for that. The first reason has to do with the scope, meaning this here is global variable, which means that it can be accessed anywhere inside this class, which means from different functions. Why do we need that? Well, because I want to be able to access it here when I'm adding a new task, but also later when I'm removing task. That is going to be another function. So I also want to be able to access the same list of tasks so that I can remove the task that I want. So that is the first reason why this variable here is global variable and not just created inside this function, for example. That is the first reason. And the second reason has to do with the lifetime of the variable, meaning this variable here was created as a global variable of this class, which means that its lifetime is as long as this class here exists. So as long as our form exists, this variable here will also exist. And that is exactly what we need, because we need to show the tasks that our user has as long as he is looking at the form. So if we simply created this variable inside this method here, then it would just exist during the lifetime of this method. And because we don't want for all of our tasks to disappear when this function here ends, I created this as a global variable of my class form, because now it will exist as long as our form exists. So those are two reasons: lifetime and scope. So now what I'm going to do with this list is, here when my user clicks the button, I will simply say my tasks dot add, like this. And here I want to add the task that my user has typed into the text box. So I will say task tbx. Okay, so I am accessing my text box. So what will I take from this text box? Because it has many properties. It has background color, it has size, it has position, but all of those things are not interesting for us. And what is interesting is the text inside that text box. So here I will say task tbx dot text. So into this list, please add the text from our text box. Okay. And now I will simply set this my tasks as a data source for this list box here. So I will say tasks lbx dot data source is equal to my tasks. And one thing that you should do before setting a new data source is you should simply null the data source that was previously assigned to your tasks list box, because this is simply going to delete the previous data source in case that there is any, and then it will assign a new one to your list box. So with this, we have implemented add functionality, and now I can start my application and test it. Okay, so let's say go to the gym, and if I click on add task, that task will appear inside my list box. Also, let's say pay bills, add task, and then let's say learn coding. Okay, add task. And as you can see, very simple, very easy. In just a few lines of code, you can implement this functionality. And another functionality that I want to implement is, now when I click on one of these tasks that I have inside my list box, I want that task to disappear. I want to remove it. So let me show you how you can solve that problem. Let's close our application, and I will go to my form. And what I need to do is I need to find an event of this list box control. So right click on it, properties, and then go to this little thunder symbol where you have all of the events. Here you have the list of all of the events, and the event that I want to implement is click event. So double click here and it will implement the click event handler for our tasks list box. And here we will write the code to remove the task that we have clicked on. So how can we do that? It's actually very easy. So I will take this list where we store all of our tasks, and instead of adding new tasks to our list, I will say remove at, and this method here removes an element at a specific position. So inside these parentheses, I will pass the index of the element that I want to remove. So how can I get that index? How can I know which task, which item to remove? Well, our list box control, this control here has a property called selected index. And selected index is the item that you have clicked on, the one that is selected. So here we will simply say tasks lbx dot selected index, like this. And this is going to remove the selected task from the list of all of our tasks. And then simply what we can do after that is we will reset the data source of our list box control, and then we will set it to this list again, because now we have removed that task from our list. So now if I start my application, let's add a task. Let's say go to the gym, click on add, and let's say also learn coding, click on add, and now we have two tasks. So for example, when you finish learning to code, when you finish watching this video, you want to remove this task, so you simply click on it and it is going to disappear. And I can also remove this one, and that is your proof that this method here works. So here we have created a fully functional application, and if I didn't explain all of these other things that you need to understand, then it would be possible to create this entire application in literally 2 minutes, because it has 1, 4, 7 lines of code that we have written. So with just 7 lines of code, we have been able to create this application. But the thing is that you really do need to understand all of these other things that I have explained in order to be able to create practical applications. And this that I have showed you in this very short video is barely scratching the surface, because there are a lot more things that you need to understand and that you need to learn if you want to build useful applications that have a lot of users and that can earn a lot of money. And all of those things we are covering in my practical programming course, because there we have a lot more time. I have personally invested a lot of time to create perfect examples for you in order to learn practical programming so that you are able to solve real world problems with your application. So if you want to learn all of that, and if you want to transform your career and go from beginner developer to experienced developer, then I will leave a link in the description that you can use in order to start learning practical programming. And before I end this video, there is one very important thing that I want to show you, because I don't want to make this video too long, because then no one is going to watch it. But I also have to show you something very important, and that is how to fix bugs, because currently, unfortunately, we have a bug in our program. Let me show you. So I am going to start my application, and at the moment, we don't have any tasks inside our list box. So what is going to happen if I click on my list box? Let's see. Okay, and as you can see, immediately our application crashes and we get this error which says index was out of range, blah, 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 very hard to understand for beginners. So the reason why we are experiencing this bug is because this method here, this task list box click, is expecting to remove a task from our list box at a selected index, but we don't have any tasks. So now what I can do is I can hover over this selected index. Okay, and as you can see, it says that selected index is -1. What does that mean? Well, for all those of you who have studied a little bit about data structures, you know that the indexation of an array or a list starts with 0. That means that the first element has the index of 0, the second has the index of 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So what does the index of -1 mean? That means nothing. No element was selected, which means our list is empty. We currently don't have any elements. So now what we need to do is we need to prevent this code here from executing if we don't have any elements inside our list. And there are a few ways to do that. So I'm going to show you 2 ways. The first way is to use the information that we already have here, and that is to say if task LBX selected index is -1, then please return from this function and don't execute any of the code. So let's use that approach first. I'm going to copy this code, and before I start writing any new code, I will stop my application. Okay, so here I will say if selected index is equal to -1, like this, what I want to happen is I will simply say return, which means, hey, please stop the execution of this function and return here, so don't execute any of this code here. So now if I start my application, we shouldn't have that bug anymore. So if I click on my empty list box, nothing is going to happen. If I add new task, as you can see, it was added. I can remove it, but again, if I click on empty list box, we don't have that exception anymore. So that is one way to fix the bug. Another way is, instead of saying this, what you can say is you can say if my tasks, which is the list where you keep all of your tasks, so if its count is less than or equal to 0, then return, which means if I don't have any tasks inside this tasks list, then there is nothing to remove. So please return from this function. And this is another way to prevent the exception from happening. So again, if I start my application and I click on this empty list box, we don't have the exception. If I add a task, let's say task 1, and I add it, I can remove it, but if I click on the empty list box, we don't have that exception anymore. So those are two ways to prevent that bug that we previously had from happening. So I believe it is going to be enough for this video. I don't want to make it too long because then no one is going to click on it. No one is going to click on a video that is 2 hours long and watch the entire video. So I definitely don't want that, because I hope that all of the things that I've shared in this video are useful to you, that you learned something new. But as I said, unfortunately, all the things that you have learned in this video are barely scratching the surface, because there are a lot more things that you need to know, a lot more things that you need to understand in order to be able to build real world applications like the ones that you and me use every day. So if you want to learn that, if you want to learn practical programming, then definitely join my course. And there I'm going to teach you step by step, from beginner to expert, everything in one place, all of the things that you need to know in order to start building real practical applications, all of the things that you need to know in order to get a job, and not just any job, but the job that you truly like and enjoy. So the course has been launched just a few days ago, and we already have a lot of people who have drastically improved their programming skills. So if your goal is to finish university, this course is definitely going to take you light years ahead of all of your peers. If your goal is to get a job, then, as I said, you will be able to get the job that you truly enjoy, because you will understand programming in depth. And we also have some people who have some great ideas about the applications that they want to build, but they lack practical experience and practical knowledge. And this course will give them all of the skills and all of the knowledge that they need in order to be able to transform those ideas into reality. So in the future, I truly believe that some of those people who finish this course will be creators of the applications that you and me are going to use in the future, some of the great applications that will come. And I am very happy to be part of that journey, and I am very happy to be mentor of such great people. So if you also want to join us, if you want to meet friends and other striving developers, then definitely click the link in the description. It is also going to be my pleasure to be your mentor. So if you are decided that you want to learn programming, and if you want to start today, click the link in the description, and I will see you in a minute. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in another video. Bye!